Trump called for security the moment Jasmine Crockett entered. But before they reached her, she spoke. It's just 60 seconds, and the room shifted. It was supposed to be routine. Another summit. Another stage. Another sea of red hats and sound bites. The Lone Star Leadership Forum at the K. Bailey Hutchison Convention. Center had been circled on calendars for weeks, not because anyone expected policy breakthroughs, but because Donald Trump was speaking. And when Trump speaks, nothing goes. Quite as planned, the lobby pulsed early with movement. Campaign volunteers in crisp navy suits weaved past reporters and vendors hawking T-shirts, bumper stickers and gold-plated bobbleheads of Trump himself. Press passes slapped against chests. Security eyed everything. By the time the ballroom doors opened, the seats were gone. Late arrivals hugged the walls. A generational mix filled the room: retired oil execs, Gen Z influencers live streaming, a few curious onlookers. Some came for policy. Most came for the show. Backstage, tension thickened. Whispers spread about surprise political appearances. Security had doubled. Plainclothes agents lined the exits. Then the lights dropped, and a voice boomed like a Vegas. Ring announcer, please welcome the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. He emerged slow, grinning like a prizefighter. The crowd roared, though not all. A few didn't clap. One man coughed loudly. Another turned his back, owning the room. He launched into jokes about Biden, California, electric cars dodging the summit's theme entirely, and then she appeared. Not from backstage, not from the aisles. From the press corridor on the right, white blazer, tanheels.com, silent, UNBOTHERE. It took a few beats for the crowd to register. A woman near the front gasped. That's Jasmine Crockett, the freshman congresswoman. From Texas's 30th district, known for sharp committee takedowns, blunt interviews, and zero interest in playing it safe. No one expected her. Certainly not here. Alone. Mid-Trump speech, he spotted her instantly. What's going on? He said into the mic, confused and irritated. Did we invite her? Security turned. Phones went up. Crockett didn't flinch. She stopped midway down the side aisle, not advancing. Not retreating. A man in a flag tie shouted, "You don't belong here." Trump waved to stagehands. Someone take care of that. She's not supposed to be here. Two guards peeled off the wall. Crockett raised a hand palm up. Not aggressive. Not performative? Just ... requesting. 1 minute, she said, voice cutting through the silence. Just 1 minute. Then I'll leave. Everything paused. Trump froze mid-gesture. The guards hesitated. Phones kept rolling. Even the usual diehards waited. She stood steady. No theatrics, no slogans, just presence. I was invited, she said, now to the room, not the man. By Representative Ethan Bell. He couldn't come. He asked me to observe in his place. Someone yelled, "Do you have proof?" She didn't answer. Instead, she looked back to Trump. You talk about open dialogue. Let me give you 60 seconds of mine. The guard slowed. One glance backstage for direction. Trump squinted. This isn't your platform, he snapped. You weren't cleared. You want 60 seconds? Start a podcast. Laughter, applause. But Crockett stayed composed. She turned again to the audience. I'm not here to disrupt, she said. I'm here because I still believe this country belongs to all of us. Not just to the people we agree with. It hit harder than expected. A ripple moved through the crowd. Trump rolled his eyes. Get her out, he muttered off mic. 1. Of the guards moved again, but then, a voice from the front. Let her speak. An older woman, denim jacket, gray hair, calm, clear. Not a plea, just a statement. Then another voice. Then a few more. Not a chant. Just enough to stall the momentum. Trump shook his head. Really? We're calling stage-crashing free speech. Now. But the tide had shifted. Too many cameras. Too much focus. Finally, with reluctant annoyance, he waved toward the mic. All right, fine. You've got 1 minute. Go ahead, say something smart. He stepped back. Crockett didn't rush. She walked slowly, stopped short of the steps. Didn't grab the mic, didn't grandstand. Just faced the crowd. I'm not here to talk policy, she began. Because this isn't about policy anymore. It's about people. About how we've stopped listening the moment we hear a name we don't like. She paused. Scanned the room. I grew up 10 minutes from here. Took the DART past this building every day. Never thought I'd walk into it asking for the right to speak. Now the room leaned in. I'm not trying to convert you. I don't need agreement. I just want us to remember we're not enemies. We're Americans. And if we can't tolerate even a voice we disagree with, we've already lost more than any election. Stillness. Even Trump stayed silent, arms folded, watching her. She nodded once. That's all I wanted to say. She stepped back. No applause. Not yet. The silence was weighty, thoughtful, then clapping. From the back corner, then a few more. Not wild, but real. Trump returned to the mic. All right, he said. Clipped. She had her say. That's America, folks. Even when you don't. Want to hear it? His voice was tight, his usual swaggered, but the room had already changed. Even Trump could feel it. Something in the room had shifted. This wasn't the explosive showdown people had braced for. No one had shouted, no one had been dragged out. But somehow it hit harder than all the shouting matches that had come before then. Another voice rose from the middle row. A man in his late 40s stewed red golf shirt, small Texas flag stitched to the sleeve. Congresswoman, he said, loud and clear. I don't agree with you on much, but you said that better than most people ever have. Respect. She didn't smile, just nodded once. Simple, quiet, solid. Trump blinked, clearly caught off guard. He glanced toward the man. Well, he muttered with a laugh that didn't quite land, aren't you full of surprises today? And just like that, the moment began slipping back toward routine. Moderators whispered into headsets. Porters rushed to upload clips. Security, still standing guard near the walls, finally relaxed. Jasmine Crockett stepped back, calm as ever. No one escorted her out. No one blocked her path. She found an empty seat near the exit and sat still, present, unshaken. But the room hadn't moved on. A reporter leaned over the press rope and whispered, to a staffer, is she giving a statement after? No response. On stage, Trump shifted. Again uncomfortable. The first time all day the spotlight wasn't on him, and it wasn't because of something he did. It was because of something she said. He adjusted the mic. Well, I think we've all had our civics lesson for the day, he said. Now, can we get back to fixing the country? Scattered chuckles. A few claps. The crowd wanted its rhythm back. But it wasn't quite there. And then, from the center of the room, a voice called out, not shouting, not mocking, just curious. Why don't you respond to what she said? Gasps. Phones lifted again. Trump froze. He scanned the crowd, but couldn't find who said it. I don't need to respond, he said finally, voice clipped. She's got her opinion. I've got mine. And I was invited. A few claps. Thin, uneven. Then Jasmine Crockett stood again. She walked slowly toward the aisle, not toward the exit, but toward the crowd. I didn't come here for attention, she said, her voice low but clear. But maybe some of you came here needing to hear something different, not better, not perfect, just different. And with that, she turned and walked out. No camera crew, no security, no drama. Just silence behind her. By the time she stepped into the sunlight outside the convention center, her phone buzzed 7 times. Texts, not calls. Journalists. A. Staffer, 2 House colleagues. She glanced at the screen but didn't answer. Not yet. Her head was spinning, even if her face didn't show it. Back inside, Trump leaned hard into the script. Immigration, border control, blue state crime. Engine had lost power. The crowd reacted half a beat too late, still thinking about something else, still thinking about her. Because what landed wasn't just what she said. It was how she said it. No slogans, no drama, just steady words from someone too tired to yell and too sincere to ignore. By the time the summit wrapped, the lobby buzzed not with policy debates, but with replayed clips on phone screens. Even attendees who hadn't been in the room were asking to see what had happened. Within 2 hours, video hit. Twitter grainy, shot from behind the press rope. Her walking in. Trump's pause at 1-minute speech. The man in the red Golf. Shirt. 10 minutes later, it had over 12,000 likes. Didn't expect to agree with Jasmine Crockett today. But wow, that's how you change minds. Not with noise, with clarity. Trump didn't know what to do. She had him just standing there. By nightfall, cable news had latched on. One headline read, "Congresswoman sparks unscripted. Moment of unity in divided room." Another called it, "An unexpected display of political courage." But not all reactions were praise. Far-right commentators slammed it as a stunt. One talk show host raged, "Come on, yo, don't just walk into a Trump event unless someone wants you seen." Still, that didn't stick, because if it had been staged, it would have felt glossier, louder. This didn't. This felt like someone stepping into a room where they didn't belong, just asking for 60 seconds to be heard. Later that evening, in her modest Dallas office, Jasmine sat with her team. "I didn't expect it to go like that," she said quietly. "You didn't expect applause either," her aide replied. "But you got some." "I wasn't looking for applause," she said, rubbing her temples. "I just wanted them to see a person, not a soundbite, not an enemy." Her press manager, Reuben Sloan, glanced up from his phone. "People are calling it a turning point. Even folks who hate politics are reposting it." Jasmine exhaled. "That's the saddest part," she said. "All I did was ask for 60 seconds, without yelling in. Now it's a national headline." Reuben shrugged. Maybe that's what people were waiting for, just someone not yelling. But even as her team tried to manage the wave, something quieter was taking root. Back at the convention center, the energy never really returned to normal. What had started as another red meat rally veered into something else, something more human, during a coffee break. People clustered near the vendor, tables ranchers from Amarillo, retired teachers from Plano, 2 young vets from El Paso. No shouting, no filming, just ... talking. One of the vets, Jonah Krill, arms crossed, said, "I'm a Trump guy, always have been." She wasn't wrong. The way she carried herself. "It got to me," sighed him. Ruth Ashby, a retired educator, nodded. "She reminded me of my sister," she said. "Stubborn, kind, just wants to be heard." Jonah nodded back. "Didn't agree with her, but I respected her." "Maybe that's where it starts," Ruth replied. "Not with agreement, with respect." Nearby, a young woman in a MAGA cap said nothing. Her expression said enough. It was working on her, too. Even during the next panel, the undercurrent lingered. State Senator Colin Greer stopped mid-discussion. "I wasn't planning to say anything," he admitted. "But if we just move on, like nothing happened, we're pretending." He paused. Congresswoman Crockett showed courage. Whether you like her or not, or whether you like me or not, but think courage still matters. The applause that followed was quiet but real, outside in the vendor lot. Jasmine walked to her car when a voice called her name. She turned. A man in a gray polo and worn jeans jogged up hesitant. "Congresswoman," he said, catching his breath. "I didn't come here to listen to your side, but I did, and I'm glad I did." She studied him. "Kenton McBride," he said. "It's roofing. Guy, Temple, Texas. Voted red all my life." He smiled, sheepish. "But what you said got to me." He stuck out his hand. She took it. "You listened," she said. "That's more than most people try to do." Behind them, 2 more people approached. One was the woman who had first spoken up inside. Let her speak. Her name was Teresa Givens, a retired nurse, grandmother. Hadn't voted blue since Bill Clinton. "I just wanted you to know you weren't alone in there," Teresa said with a gentle smile. "I didn't agree with all of it, but I was proud you showed up anyway." The voice caught in her throat. "Thank you," she said quietly. Maybe it was that stillness again, that slow. Quiet, calm, she carried that, made even critics lower their voices around her. But not everyone outside that building was ready for conversation. Inside the private lounge backstage, Trump was pacing, seething. He hated surprises. He especially hated losing control of a room he was supposed to dominate. Who the hell cleared her? He snapped, glaring at a red-faced aide. She wasn't on the list. Not on the speaker roll. Not on anything. The aide, young and nervous, sweat blooming through his collar, stammered, We think she came in on Congressman Bell's credentials, sir. Technically, she was invited. Technically. Trump scoffed. You know who else gets in on a technicality? Hackers. Criminals. I want names. Who thought that was a good idea? He stopped pacing, turned toward a small monitor still looping the footage. Jasmine's face was frozen. On screen, midsentence.com/steady. She was to calm Trump. Muttered, You see that? Not even a tremble? That wasn't off the cuff. That was written, planned. The aide said nothing, and the crowd. Trump barked. Some of our people were clapping. What the hell was that? They were just reacting, sir, the aide offered. It caught everyone off guard. Exactly my point. Trump grabbed a water bottle, took a long drink, and tried to reassert control of him, if only with himself. In the corner, his longtime advisor, Alan Rensley, finally spoke up. You didn't lose the crowd, Alan said, carefully. You didn't control it either. That moment's everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. People aren't talking about policy. They're talking about her. Trump scowled. She's not the future, he muttered. She's noise. Alan shrugged. Maybe, but noise travels fast. Trump waved him off and slumped into the leather sofa. Alan wasn't done. She played the game different. No yelling, no accusing. She just showed up like she belonged. There was a long pause. Then, unexpectedly, Trump leaned forward, elbows on knees. She had the room for a second, he admitted. I'll give her that. Alan blinked. You respect what she did? Trump didn't answer directly, just stared at the screen. Now, showing news anchors analyzing her speech. I respect strategy, he said finally. Doesn't mean I won't tear it down. Outside the lounge, his campaign staff scrambled to respond. Should they dismiss her as a stunt? Call her an intruder? Or ignore it and hope the fire died in 48 hours? But ignoring wasn't an option anymore. The clip had already made prime time. It aired on Newsline Weekly, then Front Point Live. Even a conservative podcast host's, soft-spoken. The reaction went viral. She didn't flip the room, the host said. But she reminded them there's a difference between strength and volume. Trump's team tried pivoting, posting economic stats, border clips, gas prices, but every third reply still showed a screen grab of Jasmine. Hand raised, standing alone. His base wasn't turning on him, not even close. But they weren't unified. Either some praised him for letting her speak, calling it restraint. Others said he should have cut her off. Some demanded to know why no one challenged her on the spot. That fractured, that tiny crack in cohesion, was what Trump hated most. Because whether Jasmine Crockett intended to or not, she had done something few had pulled off in the past year. She made him react, not through force, not with fury, but by calmly stepping into his domain and asking for a minute. Just a minute, and it worked, but outside the venue. The internet was just getting started by the time the Texas sun dipped behind the skyline. Jasmine Crockett was trending in 4 major cities. This wasn't just politics anymore. It had gone wide. People who had never watched a congressional hearing were quoting her speech in Instagram captions and Facebook posts. Influencers with no political angle, fashion bloggers, gym trainers, a guy known for rating BBQ were reposting her clip with captions like, "This is how you speak in a room that wasn't built for you." One TikTok edit stood out. It layered her speech over a slowed-down instrumental, ending with the man in the red golf shirt saying, "Respect." It hit 2 million views in 8 hours, and the backlash came just as fast. Staged. Publicity stunt. Polished grandstanding. Conservative talk show host pointed at the camera. Wake up, people. This was theater. You think she just walked in without coordination? Someone wanted this to go viral? Then came the trolls. Anonymous accounts dug into her voting record. Some criticized her looks. Others spread false rumors claiming she'd shoved her way in, threatened staff. None of it stuck. Security footage leaked from inside the venue showed her calm, badge in hand, walking through the metal detector like any guest. But the narrative was splintering. Cable networks scrambled. Some invited her on air. Others argued doing so validated a breach of decorum. This wasn't bravery, one commentator sneered. It was performative activism, polished to go viral. But then something strange happened. People who normally stayed out of politics, nurses, truck drivers, teachers started posting. One Facebook post stood out. A man named Brent from Lubbock wrote, "I was there, Republican all my life, Trump bumper sticker on my F-150. But when that woman spoke, something in me paused. I didn't agree with everything, but I listened. Maybe we all need to shut up for a second and start listening again." The post went viral. Jasmine quietly liked it. Her staff, meanwhile, was drowning. Invites, interviews, podcasts, panels, some genuine, others, traps, and then the threat started enough to involve Capitol Police. Enough that Ruben, her press manager, began carrying a folder labeled, "Just in case." Still, she stayed silent that first day. No tweet storm, no media blitz, just one short statement from her office. "I asked for 60 seconds in a room where I wasn't expected. I spoke. That's all. The rest is noise." But sometimes, silence only makes people listen harder. One late-night host joked, "Crockett walked into a Trump rally with more calm than a yoga instructor on Chamomile Island. She's the threat." But beneath the punchline was something deeper, because Jasmine Crockett hadn't fit the media mold. She hadn't yelled. She hadn't accused. She hadn't even stuck around to soak in applause. She asked for 1 minute. And now, whether she wanted to or not, she'd become a symbol. Inside political offices across the country, strategy rooms buzzed. In a dim Arlington office, the Democratic Regional Caucus team had been meeting for hours. Laptops open, coffee cold. Jasmine's name came up every 5 minutes, admiration mixed with anxiety. "She's got guts," said Miriam Noland, a strategist who'd worked 3 presidential campaigns. "But let's not kid ourselves, this just put a target on her." Back, across from her, party organizer Dev Patel leaned in. "Yeah, but what if that target turns into a spotlight? People are watching. Independents. Even some moderates. We'd be stupid not to use that." Miriam frowned, assuming she wants to be used. "She hasn't returned a single national call." Dev smiled. "She just lit a match in a thunderstorm. She's still figuring out how loud the thunder is." Meanwhile, a few hundred miles east, in a quiet Tulsa office, the GOP regional media team was having a very different conversation: damage control. Because for all the spin, all the blowback, one thing was now clear. Jasmine Crockett had walked into a storm and changed the weather. "She made him look flat-footed," said Julian Cross, a comms advisor known for engineering hardline narratives. "We can't afford that twice." She was invited, another staffer muttered. "By a Republican, no less." Julian turned sharply, "And that's the part we bury. You don't give that an inch of oxygen. As far as our base knows," she walked in off the street. "But there's footage," the staffer replied, frowning. "Clear footage. She had a badge." He didn't flinch. "Truth doesn't trend," he said coldly. "Emotion does." Back in Dallas, Jasmine sat alone in her living room, still wearing the same white blazer from the summit. A cup of tea sat untouched on the coffee table. Her phone kept lighting up texts, alerts, voicemails she wasn't ready to face. One transcription caught her eye. It was from her mother. "You did good, baby. Don't let them twist it. You spoke like a woman raised right." She smiled faintly, but the moment didn't last. A knock at the door. Ruben stepped in without a word, laptop under his arm. Urgency in his eyes. "We need to talk invites," he said, sitting down. "Town Hall in Oklahoma wants you next week. PBS is asking for a one-on-one. And believe it or not, Fox wants a segment." She didn't respond right away. "I didn't do it for this," she said softly. I just couldn't sit through another one-sided speech about what real Americans want. Like I wasn't one of them. Reuben nodded. And you didn't. Scream to prove it. That's why it landed. They sat in silence for a moment. Do you regret it? He asked. Jasmine inhaled, slow and steady. I regret that it felt rare, she said. That telling the truth quietly is considered radical now. Upstairs, the TV still glowed from her guest room. Her niece had fallen asleep with the news looping. On screen, the anchor said, an unusual calm. A rare political moment that left even the former president without a ready response. Somewhere in Washington, a campaign manager was sketching out ad copy. Somewhere in Florida, a donor pulled funding from a candidate who had clapped. And in party strategy rooms across the country, one quiet question kept surfacing. If 1 minute of clarity could shake the room, what would 5 do? 2 mornings later, Jasmine sat alone in a small cafe in Oak Cliff, hoodie up, hoping to steal a quiet hour before the headlines found her again. But quiet never lasts long when the country decides you've become symbolic, eh? Barista nodded in recognition but said nothing. Then a woman in scrubs walked in, hesitated, and approached. Are you? She asked, voice unsure. I am, Jasmine replied, tired but kind. I watched your clip 3 times yesterday. The woman said, my dad's a trucker. Voted Trump his whole life. But when he heard you, he got real quiet. Said she's got guts. Reminds me of your grandma. Jasmine blinked, stunned. The woman placed a folded note on the table. He doesn't do social media. So he asked me to write something. Then she walked away before Jasmine could say thank you. She opened it. I don't agree with you, but I'd listen to you. That's more than I can say for most. Later that day, she sat down for a local interview with journalist Shelby Dunn, who'd covered Texas politics for 2 decades. I've seen a lot of rooms like that, Shelby said, recorder on. But I've never seen one stop like it did for you. Jasmine paused. I wasn't trying to stop anything. I just wanted to say what no one says in those rooms, that it's okay to disagree without thinking someone hates the country. Were you scared? Shelby asked. Jasmine looked away briefly. I was aware, she said, aware of the risk. Of how it might be seen. That I was alone, but scared. No, I've been in smaller rooms with louder men. She smiled softly. What scared me more was what would have happened if I stayed quiet, if I let that moment slip. You think it would have landed the same if you'd shouted? No, Jasmine said without pause. That room wasn't built for my anger. It was barely ready for my presence. But when I didn't come in swinging, they had to choose, listen, or walk out, and most stayed. And now, she exhaled. I don't want to be a moment. I want this to be a start. If people walked away thinking maybe I should listen before, I assume that's enough for me. The ripple continued. A pastor in Nebraska invited her to speak. Civics teacher in Arizona asked for a message. A group of Ohio veterans posted a video. Thank you for showing restraint when you could have shown fire. But criticism came too. She's just another media puppet. Selling calm like it's a brand. Walked into a lion's den. And acted like it was brunch. Still she didn't flinch. Because something had shifted, not just for her. In kitchen table chats and gas station counters, barbershops and union halls, people weren't asking, whose side is she on? They were asking, why did it feel so rare to hear someone speak like that? Maybe that was the story, not her courage, not her politics. But that quiet had started to feel brave. And even Jasmine knew the moment wouldn't last unless someone carried it forward. 3 weeks later, the headlines had moved on. The interviews had aired. Think pieces posted. Political panels pivoted to the next firestorm. But the echo hadn't vanished. In church basements, city council meetings, debate classes across the country, the clip kept resurfacing. A pastor in Topeka used it in a sermon. About humility, a teacher in Fresno asked her class, what made the room stop? Was it the message or the way she said it? And in a Lafayette diner, a retired mechanic named Howard McClure leaned over his coffee and told his buddies that woman didn't even raise her voice, and half the room sat up straighter. I can't stop thinking about that. In a time when volume often wins over value, Jasmine Crockett had cut through the noise by refusing to play the game, and she wasn't celebrating. She was back home walking cracked sidewalks, listening to teachers, meeting with small business owners still reeling from pandemic debt. Her team begged her to go national, do the interviews, ride the momentum. Let people know I'm still here, she told Ruben. Let them know I didn't turn into a headline. I'm still a neighbor. Because she knew the country didn't need another viral moment. It needed something deeper, not perfect, just real. And once you show people a different way to be heard, they start expecting more from you and from everyone else. The pushback kept coming. Pundits claimed she was softening her message. Party operatives said she was off-brand. One high-ranking official even told her, "You're a Democrat. You're supposed to fight fire with fire." But that's not the lesson she took from that day, because that room proved something she'd always believed: people don't always need a hero. Sometimes they need a pause, a window, a second to reconsider. And that only happens when the shouting stops long enough for a voice like hers to break through. In her final interview before stepping back from the spotlight, a young reporter asked, "What do you want people to remember about that day?" Jasmine paused, then said, "I want them to remember what it felt like when nobody was yelling, just for a minute. A room full of people who didn't agree on much still listened to each other." "And what would you say," the reporter asked, "to someone who thinks speaking up isn't worth the risk?" She looked right into the camera. "I'd say silence is a risk too. And the longer we pretend only the loudest voices matter, the more we lose the people who actually have something worth saying." Outside, her car was waiting. Another neighborhood, another question without a sound. Bite answer, but she was ready, because this wasn't about viral clips or talking points. It was about showing up, especially in rooms that weren't made for her. She opened the door, stepped out into the noise, again willing to risk everything for just one more quiet moment. And maybe that was the message we all needed. Not to be louder, but to make our words matter more. If this story moved you even just a little, subscribe, because sometimes one calm voice at the right moment can shift everything.